He publicly humiliated his wife in a restaurant but regretted it immediately after a single call. The restaurant shimmered with quiet elegance, a jewel nestled in the heart of Lagos' highbrow district. Warm amber light spilled from delicate hanging chandeliers, casting a soft glow on marble floors and polished wooden tables. The hum of quiet conversations and the gentle clink of silverware against fine china filled the air, blending with the soft jazz notes drifting from a live saxophonist in the corner. It was a place where people came to celebrate life's finest moments, and tonight, it was supposed to be one of them. David stepped into the room, his presence as commanding as ever. Dressed in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit with a crisp white shirt open at the collar, he carried the quiet confidence of a man who had built empires. His arm rested lightly around Amora's waist, guiding her gently through the maze of tables. Amora, radiant in a flowing maroon off-shoulder dress that complemented her glowing brown skin, smiled faintly as heads turned in their direction. Her soft curls framed her face elegantly, and her eyes searched David's profile for a trace of the warmth he used to carry. This was their anniversary dinner. 11 years married. A night she had planned for weeks, choosing the restaurant carefully, picking her outfit with care, hoping it would stir some old magic. She wore the same perfume she wore on their honeymoon, and as she sat down across from him, she clung to the hope that maybe, just maybe, he'd notice. David, however, didn't. His eyes remained locked on his phone, thumbs dancing rapidly across the screen. Occasionally he muttered a distracted in response to her attempts at conversation, his mind clearly elsewhere. He barely looked up when the waiter arrived with a bottle of wine she had pre-ordered. Even the toast, "To us," she said softly, was met with a half-hearted clink of glasses and a tight-lipped smile. The food arrived, steaming plates of jollof rice with grilled lobster, agusi soup with pounded yam, garnished and served with elegance. Amora tried to eat, but her appetite waned with every second of his indifference. Her voice grew quieter, her shoulders tenser. The emotional distance between them was now more apparent than the linen-draped table that separated them. From the outside, they looked perfect, a power couple dining in style. But beneath the shimmering surface, something was unraveling. Amora waited until the main course had been cleared away and their plates sat nearly untouched, replaced now by a quiet awkwardness that lingered like a fog between them. She took a slow sip of water, trying to find the courage she'd rehearsed in her mind a dozen times before. Her voice, when it finally emerged, was soft but steady. "David, can we talk?" He didn't look up from his phone immediately. When he did, his brow furrowed with irritation, not concern. "Talk about what?" he muttered, clearly distracted. "Us," she said simply. "Our marriage. You've been distant. You come home late. You barely speak to me anymore. I just want to know if you're okay. If we're okay." David scoffed and tossed his phone on the table, the clatter startling. His voice rose, sharp and biting, and for the first time all evening, he gave her his full attention, but not the kind she had hoped for. "You want to talk about this now? Here?" he snapped. Amora glanced around nervously. A couple at the next table turned slightly, subtly listening. But she nodded. "Yes, here. Because I feel like this is the only place I might get a straight answer from you." David leaned forward, his expression hardening. "You know what your problem is, Amora? You're needy. Always nagging. Nothing I do is ever enough for you." Her lips parted in disbelief. "That's not fair." "No," he cut in, louder now, voice echoing through the quiet restaurant. "What's not fair is me working my ass off every day while you sit at home pretending to be exhausted from, what? Making lunch? School runs? You don't contribute anything anymore, Amora. You're just a housewife living off my hard work." The room went still. The background chatter faded into a thick, stunned silence. Forks paused mid-air. A waiter who was approaching their table stopped in his tracks. Amora sat frozen, blinking rapidly, as if unsure if she'd heard him correctly. Her cheeks flushed crimson, not with anger, but shame. The humiliation pressed down like a weight on her chest. She felt exposed, gutted, every pair of eyes in the room slicing into her. She reached for her napkin and dabbed at the corner of her eye. She wouldn't let the tears fall. Not here. Not in front of everyone. David, still fuming, stood abruptly and grabbed his phone. Without another word, he turned and stalked toward the bar, his footsteps echoing in the silence he had created. And Amora sat alone, at the center of a ruined anniversary, swallowing heartbreak with the same poise that once made him fall in love with her. Once, long before silence and bitterness filled the spaces between them, David and Amora had been inseparable. They met during their final year at the University of Lagos. He was studying business administration, full of charisma and ambition, while she was the top student in psychology, quiet but brilliant, with a disarming smile and a laugh that always found its way to him across the campus lawn. Their first conversation had started over a spilled drink at a mutual friend's party. It had ended hours later with them walking side by side under the night sky, talking about everything and nothing, family, dreams, fears, the kind of life they wanted to build. David was drawn not just to her beauty, but her depth. Amora was thoughtful, compassionate, the kind of person who remembered the smallest details and cared deeply about everyone she met. She challenged him, questioned him, inspired him. She believed in his dreams even when they were shaky outlines, fueling his ambition with her unwavering support. They had promised each other the world, whispered vows before their wedding day that went beyond any ceremony. He had told her, "Whatever we build it together." And for a while, they did. Amora had a bright future ahead of her. A competitive position in a top-tier mental health foundation was within reach. But when their first child was born, she chose to pause everything to be fully present. "Just until they're older," she said. David had resisted at first, even protested. But she insisted it was what she wanted. That decision marked the beginning of a slow unraveling, one of silent sacrifices. Now, in this quiet flashback, the echoes of their laughter from years ago sounded like a different lifetime. That boy who once held her hand with pride had turned into a man who now weaponized her choices against her. The same woman he once called brilliant, he now dismissed as just a housewife. David sat hunched over the marble counter of the bar, swirling the untouched glass of whiskey in front of him. His jaw was clenched tight, his expression unreadable under the dim lighting. He could still feel the heat in his chest, the lingering adrenaline from the words he had thrown at Amora. The echo of his own voice, sharp, cruel, public, reverberated in his head. Yet still, his ego wouldn't let him feel regret. Not yet. His phone buzzed in his hand. At first, he considered ignoring it. But when he saw the caller ID, Dr. Chika, a ripple of confusion moved through him. The doctor only called for something serious. He answered with a curt, "Hello." "David, good evening," came the calm but urgent voice on the line. "It's Dr. Chika. I've been trying to reach you for a few days." David's frown deepened. "Is something wrong with one of the kids?" There was a pause. "No. It's Amora." David sat up straighter. "What about her?" "She's been coming to my clinic for several weeks now. She didn't want to worry you, so she kept it private. But after the final tests yesterday, I insisted you be told." David's grip on the phone tightened. "Told what?" Dr. Chika exhaled. "She's been diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, David. It's aggressive. We've already scheduled consultations with the oncology department. She's been incredibly strong, but she's been going through this alone." The room seemed to tilt. David's pulse roared in his ears. I don't understand," he stammered. "She didn't say anything to me. Nothing." "I know," the doctor said gently. "She didn't want this dinner ruined. She believed tonight would be a good night. She still had faith that you'd see her. The real her." David's breath caught in his throat. The glass in his hand slipped and clinked against the bar as his hand dropped to his lap. His mind flashed back to just an hour earlier, Amora standing at the door, hesitant but smiling, asking if he liked her dress. Her soft voice at dinner. The way her fingers trembled when she lifted her wine glass. She had dressed up for him, smiled through her pain, and tried to reach him, while fighting cancer in secret. His stomach twisted violently. Shame. Horror. Guilt. He remembered how she had tried to talk to him, her voice shaking with vulnerability, asking if they were okay. And he had humiliated her, shattered her in public, called her needy. David's eyes welled with tears. The noise of the bar faded around him. His breath grew short. He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over the stool, fumbling for his phone and wallet. Panic and realization surged through him like a current. He had looked at her, really looked at her, and seen nothing. And now he couldn't bear the thought that he might lose her. David's footsteps pounded against the polished floor as he raced back through the restaurant, his heart threatening to burst from his chest. His eyes scanned their table, empty. The wine glasses sat untouched, her shawl was gone, her chair pulled back. "Amora," he called, breathless. Heads turned again, curious, confused. The waiter who had served them earlier avoided his gaze. She wasn't there. Panic surged through him. He shoved through the heavy glass doors of the restaurant, the night air hitting him like a slap. His eyes darted wildly across the parking lot until he spotted a familiar silhouette standing near the valet stand. There she was. Amora stood with her back to him, arms folded tightly around herself, her maroon dress catching the light from the valet lamp. Her head was bowed, shoulders stiff, and she reached up to wipe her face with the back of her hand. "Amora!" he shouted, his voice cracking. She didn't turn. He rushed to her, stumbling to a halt just a foot away, then, without a second thought, dropped to his knees on the concrete, right there in front of her and everyone else. His expensive trousers scraped the ground, but he didn't care. "I'm sorry," he choked. Please forgive me. I didn't know. I was blind. I was cruel. I didn't see you, but I see you now. I swear, Amora. I see you." She looked down at him slowly, her eyes red and shining with tears she refused to let fall. Her chin trembled, but her expression remained steady. "You never looked at me," she whispered, voice low and full of quiet devastation. "Now you want to see me?" David couldn't answer. His breath hitched. And in front of the valets, the restaurant guests, and the world, he wept. The house, once filled with laughter and the everyday chaos of family life, had fallen into a thick, uncomfortable silence. Days passed like shadows slipping through the walls, soundless, heavy, and slow. David and Amora moved around each other like strangers, cohabiting a space that felt colder with each step. David tried to speak. He tried every morning, every evening, soft words, awkward confessions, clumsy attempts at redemption. But Amora, though never unkind, kept her responses brief. She focused on sorting medical documents, booking consultations, and quietly folding the laundry while staring off at nothing. The children, 8-year-old Zena and 12-year-old Kamsi, felt the shift. They no longer ran to the door when David came home. They no longer laughed around the dinner table. They whispered more, asking their mother why she looked tired all the time, asking their father if he'd made her sad. David cancelled every business meeting that involved travel. He cleared his calendar for the month. He fired his driver and began doing school pickups himself. He watched YouTube tutorials and learned how to cook her favorite yam porridge. He vacuumed the house. He stood in line at the pharmacy. He stayed. At night, when Amora was asleep, he read medical journals about her diagnosis, scribbled notes on how to manage chemo side effects, and joined an online support group under a fake name. Every post he read about guilt, about repair, about fighting for someone, struck a chord he couldn't ignore. He never told Amora what he was doing. But slowly, she noticed. The house was cleaner. The fridge was stocked with fruits she could stomach. Her prescriptions were filled without her asking. One night, she watched from the hallway as he sat on the living room floor, helping Kamsi with homework, smiling gently. And for the first time in weeks, her heart softened, just slightly. The living room had been transformed. Soft fairy lights lined the ceiling, casting a warm, golden glow across the space. Candles flickered on every surface, their scent subtle and soothing. On the wall, framed family photos had been arranged in a mosaic, from wedding day smiles to birthdays, vacations, school plays. A large banner hung gently across the far wall, hand-painted in careful strokes, "We see you, Amora." Amora stood in the doorway, stunned. She hadn't been told what the evening was for. She thought it might be a dinner with just the kids. But now, her sisters, cousins, and closest friends stood around the room, smiling softly, each holding a rose. Her eyes flicked to David, who stood quietly beside the dining table, not dressed in a suit, but in a plain shirt and jeans, humble, sincere, a shadow of the man who had once barked at her across a restaurant. "Mom," Kamsi began nervously, standing in front of her with a folded paper. "I wrote you something." He cleared his throat and started reading. "Dear Mommy, I know you've been tired, and sometimes sad. But you're the bravest person I know. You always show up. You make the house feel like home. I want to grow up and be just like you, even though I'm a boy." The room chuckled. Xena followed, her little hands shaking as she read her note about Mommy's magic hugs that fix everything. Amora sat down, tears streaming freely. Then David stepped forward, holding a microphone. "Thank you all for coming. I wanted tonight to be about truth, and about love." He looked directly at Amora. "I failed you. I hurt you. And I did it in public. But today, I want to honor you in front of everyone, the way I should have long ago." He paused. "Amora has been fighting cancer for weeks. Alone. Because I wasn't present enough to notice. But not anymore. I vow to walk this road with you, every step, every hour. I see you now, fully. And I love you more than I ever knew." The room was silent, moved. Amora wiped her tears and stood. Her voice was steady. "I forgive you, David. But never again. No more silence. No more disrespect." He nodded. She stepped forward, and in the middle of their living room, surrounded by family, they embraced, quietly, fully, without a single word left unspoken. 1 year later, the same upscale restaurant buzzed with elegant chatter and soft music, the familiar glow of chandeliers casting golden light across perfectly set tables. But this time, Amora entered not with hesitation, but with quiet power. She wore a fitted emerald green gown that shimmered with every graceful step, her short natural curls now fully grown back into soft coils. Her head held high, her smile serene, Amora walked through the restaurant with the air of a woman who had faced death, heartbreak, and silence, and had emerged stronger than ever. Behind her, David followed closely, dressed in a simple black suit, not flashy, not ostentatious, just respectful. In his hands, he carried a bouquet of white lilies, her favorite, tied with a soft pink ribbon. His eyes never left her, filled with admiration and gratitude that words could barely hold. The waiter recognized them instantly and, with a polite smile, led them to a reserved table near the window, candlelit, intimate, set for two. The same table where it had all fallen apart. Tonight, it had been carefully chosen for something different. A circle closing. A wound healing. David helped her into her seat and placed the bouquet on the table beside her. Then he sat, reached for the wine bottle already chilling beside them, and poured her a glass before his own. He raised it slowly. "To the strongest woman I know," he said, voice clear, steady. Amora smiled, her eyes misting slightly. She raised her glass and clinked his gently. "To second chances," she replied. They talked, they laughed. They shared memories of the last year, chemo appointments, small victories, the day she rang the hospital bell. David told her how proud the children were of her, how much he had learned from her strength. They laughed over silly things, cried over the quiet ones. Other diners looked over now and then, not with confusion or discomfort, but with quiet awe. Some recognized them. Some whispered. But this time, the stares weren't about a scandal. They were about survival, love rediscovered, and the quiet triumph of a woman who was never just anything. Amora didn't notice. She was too busy living.